Poso maoni wiak, waiwanan kitana ni mua e yoski piataya posnotaman e yum MITW Podcast. A yospis piataya posnapi notaman and e hisikimaka e yoso Menominee hakihi.
Welcome to the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin podcast. I'm your host, Sheena Wapoose. On this episode, we are joined by our usual, I'm just going to call you co-host at this point, but our usual quote-unquote guest, Vaughn Bowles, the Public Information Officer for the Menominee Indian Tribe. And then we also have another guest this week. Ron Waukau is here to share his story with us as well. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so do you just want to tell us, kind of take us through your experience that you had recently being infected with COVID?
Sure. So I was vaccinated. I'll back up to vaccination. I was vaccinated in April/May with the Moderna, I believe. So I was vaccinated then, got my card. And I'll fast forward to middle of July. I look at a calendar in July. I believe that I was infected from someone that attended the Bucks game. That's all I can really link it back to when I did my thinking about where I was and stuff. Someone that I knew attended one of the games, and then we went and watched the next game at home, at their home. And then 5 days later, I became ill, felt sick. Didn't really think I was battling a upper respiratory illness already, and I don't know if that weakened me enough to become through the vaccine. But anyway, I started getting symptoms on July 22nd, around there. And then I got a fever, a slight fever, a lot of fatigue, chills. Then on that next Friday, I lost my sense of taste and smell. And at that point, I kind of hunkered down myself. I kind of isolated myself. Kind of went off the grid a little bit, best I could, until I could get into the clinic to be tested on Monday, July 26th. So I went in, did the drive-through test. They called me back within a half hour, and I was positive. Asked if I was vaccinated. I said yes. And from there, I ended up getting in contact with the tribe in an isolation home that the tribe had available, which I was grateful for, and hunkered down in there for 8 days. So during that time, I was able to function, to work. We had Wi-Fi. So I was grateful that we had a place for myself to go and be able to isolate. And as far as I know, through all my interviews and contact tracing, that no one contacted the virus from me. So I didn't have all my direct contacts I listed, and people, coworkers and family, no one was positive from that group. So I was grateful for that as well.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Ron. So I have a couple questions. Your symptoms pretty much were the classic symptoms that, we hear when we talk about COVID, where you have, the loss of taste, loss of smell, fatigue. You had a fever. Doesn't happen for everybody, but you seem to have a fever. Do you remember what your temperature was right around?
It was like 100.2.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a low grade fever. I was keeping track like hourly. So it wasn't really high, but it was 100.2.
So you don't have to be burning up. Yeah, that's a good
No.
example of that.
Nope. And then also I did, and I joke with Dr. Slagle, not joke, but I always ask when it's at the legislative level, when she comes and does a report about the variant, if we're testing for the variant. And she said she always lets me know where we're at with that. So I ended up doing it, which is kind of ironic. So I asked about the variant test, and I ended up taking it.
Gotcha. Did you hear back of whether did you have the variant? Did you have the Delta that's been going around?
Do not know. Did not get the data back. I did not check in, and I didn't know if we were able to get that data back.
You know, we can. It takes a while sometimes because the process is backlogged. So sometimes it's between 2 and 4 weeks almost, and at that point you've kind of almost recovered. But they can let you know whether or not you did have the Delta variant. So we should keep an eye on that. That would actually be interesting to know whether or not you picked that up. And personally, I'm really grateful that no one you were in contact with also contracted it. So that's fantastic to hear. Talk a little bit more about, or would you talk a little bit more, I should say, please talk a little bit more about the isolation house. What was that like? How did you interact with the tribe for that and get set up there?
So once I was positive, I received a call. Well, obviously being on the legislature, I had to let because I was in a meeting Thursday, which I finally started going back to in-person meeting, and then I didn't know it at that point, but I was carrying COVID. So I was sitting at the legislative table for one of my second meetings that I did go back, not knowing it at the time, but I was sick with COVID, so I had to let them all know. I explained in my contact trace interview where I was, who was in the room. So I think they all ended up getting tested, all my fellow legislators. So
Good.
From that point, the word was out. I was a breakthrough, and the word was out. And then I asked if there was anywhere, if the homes were being used. They asked me if I'd be interested in, I think it was Ben, like we can take care of you and isolate you right away if you don't have anywhere else to go. So that's how that came about. I was able to do it. I know there was a big gap, and I don't know what the gap was for people that were actually in the home, but the home was very nice. Had Wi-Fi capable. I was able to work. I was able to isolate. The biggest thing was I was able to isolate. I was able to be in there. I was safe, away from everyone, and be able to not spread it anymore. And that was very important to me, that I did not want to get, to be a ground zero for a whole new outbreak of COVID cases. So
thanks for being responsible about that. That's fantastic. I'm grateful you're so civically minded that way. That's been one of the big challenges that, as a state and, across the country, we've struggled with, I think.
So Vaughn, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but the fact that he didn't give it to anybody else, would that have something to do with the fact that he was vaccinated?
So they're still working on whether or not vaccinated individuals with a breakthrough case spread the disease as much as someone who's not vaccinated, versus someone who's picked up a variant or versus the original wild type. So they're not sure yet. They think that since they have a lower degree of symptoms, they're also spreading less virus. But we'll probably find out in the next month or so whether or not that's scientifically and statistically the case. So So Ron, you said you had a question that you wanted to ask before we jumped on here?
With the variant, I guess, how are we getting, like, as far as treatment or symptoms, how are we getting that information back? Are there any other additional symptoms we should be looking for with the variant other than the cases we were treating during the surges last winter?
Right now they haven't identified any new types of symptoms, so they're pretty much the standard congestion, fatigue, chest pains, potentially loss of sense of smell, taste. People could also notice that they have a lack of concentration or they're unable to concentrate. Migraines are not uncommon, and some of those similar symptoms. And so as far as symptom-wise, you can't really tell whether or not you have the Delta variant or another type. At this point, if you do have it, it's really likely the variant because in some parts of the country, it makes up like 92% of the cases. So it's really widespread, and if you're picking up COVID, you're probably picking up Delta at this point. And that goes to show, even if you've been vaccinated, you still can you still can get sick, and potentially you can still spread it. Today I was actually reading an article that I believe it was the FDA. Yeah, the FDA was actually considering authorizing a third dose of vaccines for individuals that are immune compromised. So, people that are elderly, anyone that has any sort of immune compromised medication and stuff, people that have had, things like transplants and stuff, fall into that category. Certain diseases put you in that category. And they really want them to be protected. There are some studies that suggest, maybe after 6 months, the vaccine immunity wanes just a little bit. So that's another reason that they're kind of talking about an update on that. But the jury's still kind of out, and so they're still looking into that too.
So I kind of had a question about the booster shot thing.
Yeah.
So I think it was a tweet I saw a couple of weeks ago that this person was talking about how they had a booster shot and their reaction to it was more severe, like the side effects of it were more severe than when they had their second shot. So is that something that people should expect if we're going to go in this booster shot direction? So
I would say yes, and the reason for that is again, you're ramping up your immune system and you're eliciting a response from it. So you will likely experience more symptoms if you get a third shot, because that's exactly what it's supposed to do, essentially. And there's some estimates that there have already been approximately 1 million people across the country that have kind of snuck in and gotten the third one before authorization. So we'll kind of see how it's going with that group soon, and maybe we can find some of them and see how they handled it initially. So, yeah.
I guess I'll mention I did take the treatment was offered. Is it remdesivir?
Yes, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, it's essentially made up of what they call monoclonal antibodies. That another name? Yeah. Did you take that treatment while you had it, Ron?
It was offered, and I asked if it was offered if the tribe had it available for any future, and they said that they did for anyone that was infected with COVID. So, and emergency declaration or emergency use authorization was done, and so I did take it. I did go to Shawano. I ended up going to Shawano ER and getting the treatment. Took a couple hours. I think that was on a Tuesday, and by Friday I felt, the nagging symptoms that I was experiencing that whole week kind of I felt like I started to get a little bit better at that point.
Good.
Like 3 days after. So.
Was it just the one treatment in Shawano and stuff, or were there a series of them?
Just the one setting, one IV treatment. So I was not, I felt like if there was anything I could do, if it was Delta, if there's anything I could do at the head of this to help as far as treatments or anything that would help moving forward, anything I could do, take the variant test to get the treatment, if anything like that I could help with, I was willing to do it.
Yeah, I know the clinic is actually working on updating some of their policies and procedure manuals to include the monoclonal antibody treatments. I believe there are 2 different types that they're looking at using kind of on an ongoing basis and stuff. So not uncommon for our people that will be getting it. Hopefully we can use that more in the future. It seemed to be a pretty safe and tight protocol, and hopefully it'll help our patients that are at risk for severe cases going forward.
Yep, and that was probably my worst. When offered was like my worst 3 days. So when it was offered, I didn't know if where I was, if I was going to get, that was going to be it, or I was going to go down, feel more ill with it. So that was like at the bottom. I was pretty ill at that point when I agreed to it. I didn't feel very good at all. So yeah, I didn't know which way I was going to go from there. So it was interesting, but I'm glad it's there for people. If tribal members are it's something, it's an option for them to be able to do
Absolutely.
this. I think it's great.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I had a friend that I was talking with recently, also got a pretty severe case of COVID. I hadn't known that beforehand, but they got the monoclonal antibody treatment, and they said it really turned their case around too. And they said they were actually hospitalized, and they were like, at one point, I was pretty certain I was going to die, and they're like, we can get this to you. And so he also accepted it, and he said it turned his case right around, and he was really grateful they had it too. So I'm grateful we're offering that to our tribal members and our patients too. I think that's really fantastic.
I guess one of the big reasons I wanted to come on and share was the vaccine. The importance of it, how quickly the clinic was able to get the vaccine out. The work that was done, the organization, the administration, and all the clinic staff to be able to get. I'm talking about when I got it in April, May, we were at the high school, rolling out the vaccine and being able to get that in people's arms, and how much more ill I would have been if I didn't have it. So I'm grateful for that, and to send a message to the tribal membership that anyone that's not vaccinated to get out there and get the shot in the arm, because the people that were around me, and I attribute to the vaccine, it didn't spread. It didn't go beyond me. I was vaccinated with the breakthrough, but it did not go any further than that. So I think it's important that we continue to keep vaccinating. Everyone that is able to get a shot should be able to get down and get a shot.
So just for clarification, Ron, all the other members in your household that were available, they'd gotten the vaccination previously?
Yep. Everyone that I listed as a direct contact through either from my place of employment at work or home, family, were all vaccinated. And none of them.
That's great. That is great to hear.
So I'll throw this one at you, Vaughn. At being vaccinated and then being a breakthrough, having COVID, so I'm like super immune now.
That's what they think at this point. You should be. Your immune system's had quite the go at this.
So I'm sure breakthroughs there'll be more and more. As we move forward. But I guess I just wanted to share that. I didn't, and the people that don't want to get the shot could look at it and say, hey, he had the shot and it didn't. He still got it, but still send the message that I was not as ill. Who knows? I don't know how sick I would have been if I didn't have the vaccine, but still send a message to get the shot. So.
And on the flip side of that, you could say, you did get it, but your family members didn't. So that potentially helped all of them immensely.
Exactly. Good point.
Ron, thanks for sharing your story with us, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I know we've been wanting to hear more of the stories from the community and stuff. So thanks for taking the time. Thanks for bravely sharing your story about illness. I think one of the other things that we really need to think about is that it's a lot of people stigmatize getting COVID still, and it's not a fault thing. It doesn't make you a bad person because you contracted it. I personally have a younger brother who is in medical school right now, and he picked it up even though he was in class virtually the entire time. They have no idea how he got it. They have no idea how he contracted it, and so can't blame him for that. Can't blame other people for that in a lot of cases. It's kind of a ubiquitous virus now. It's out in the environment, so we need to do everything we can to protect ourselves and protect our families and loved ones and communities. So thanks for coming on. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep, thanks for having me, and you guys that keep up with the podcasts. They're great.
Thank you.
Very, I listen to them all the time, and keep up the good work.
Thank
you.
you. I'm sure everybody's heard by now, but I did want to mention that there is a vaccine incentive that's going to be coming out. So any tribal employee and also any enrolled tribal members, I forgot the date. I think it's the end of October, right? Yeah. That's fully vaccinated by the end of October is eligible to receive a $500 incentive. So, all right. Waiwanan for listening to the Menominee Indian Tribe Wisconsin podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also listen to the podcast on menominee-nsn.gov under the Community tab. Keep up to date by following us on Facebook at MITW Podcast. I do weekly updates with Vaughn. We welcome any community questions you have regarding COVID-19, so please send those to us at podcast@mitw.org.